when the violence started, and everyone in Imphal was just running to the nearest security camp.
The thing is that the illegal arms are in possession of civilians, and that has made the situation very, very serious.
The situation is really depressing and very worrying.
At this point, it's very difficult to talk about the future of Manipur because Manipur has never experienced a civil war-like situation which we have experienced today.
So good evening all. We are here to discuss the situation in Manipur, which is burning, which is still in very problematic area after 2 months of chaos and total destruction. So we are here on the panel, 3 people who are having first-hand information about Manipur. So we'll start with the submission that the Solicitor General has given to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court was told that the situation in Manipur is getting back to normalcy slowly but steadily. It is coming back. The Supreme Court was told that 114 companies of Central Armed Police Force have been deployed. 184 columns of army, the Assam Rifles have been deployed, and 355 relief camps have been opened. But what was not mentioned probably is that when the cases came up for hearing in early May, the first week of May, the death toll was around 20, and now it is around 110. That's what we have been told. 110 people have died and 40,000 people have been displaced. They have become refugees. So we'll start with Sushanta Talukdar. He has done extensive reporting from the field for Frontline, and he is the editor for EZINE. So, sir, what is the actual situation? What is happening in Manipur for the last 2 months? Because we have been getting contradictory. So what exactly is the situation right there? We'll start from that.
Yeah, the situation is still tense. There is no sign of any immediate reconciliation, with people still being attacked, targeted, and retaliation. Houses are still being burned. Although I could see presence of security forces along the highway when I traveled to Surasapur from Imphal. But then I was astonished to find that when there was so much of security forces present, and they also told me to be careful enough not to wait near the villages where houses have been burned and people have already been evacuated to shelter camps. They said that the firing and retaliation is still on, so it is not safe to wait here. So I was wondering what the security forces were doing to tackle the situation. We have had covered conflict in Assam also. I mean, for past 3 decades, I have been covering conflict situation, including armed conflict, where the armed groups have attacked the villagers, unarmed villagers. But here in Manipur, I have seen a serious situation than on the conflict than I had covered before. The thing is that the illegal arms are in possession of civilians, and that has made the situation very, very serious. And these are not in numbers of just tens or few hundreds. These are in numbers of thousands. More than 3,000 weapons looted from armories were still with the hands of armed groups among the civilians. I'm not saying all the civilians are armed, but then there are armed groups, and they admit that we have taken these arms for our defense, and it is on both the sides. It's not on one side. So I get to hear the same defense in both the sides, and that's so that the fear of being attacked, fear of retaliation, that still haunts the people, and that is why they are not believing, they are not having trust or confidence in the security forces, despite the number may be quite huge, 40,000 for a state like the Manipur, with just let's go over 20,000 square kilometer, no? So it's 40,000 presence of central forces, army, paramilitary forces. Even then, people are not feeling confident, and they are defending. They say that we need the arms to defend ourselves. That is the ground situation. That is everywhere. Fear is, whenever I spoke to the inmates in the relief camp, in the inmates are villagers displaced from cooking villages and or the native villages. The story is same. Of course, in any conflict situation, we will always have the narrative of us and them, and then people describing who attacked, how, and then these are the normal stories in all conflict situation. But then it is true once, and normally the sides of people becoming desperate to return to their village. But when I asked them, yeah, the people said we want to village, but we are afraid. So until and unless people are feeling confident to return to their villages, peace will be far, and there will be no immediate reconciliation. That is what I would feel and see. And even the groups representing the communities, and they are also not trusting each other. So that any peace initiative that was taken, the peace committee, that has also not worked. So until and unless these groups meet together, sit across the table, the citizen is not going to improve. I am afraid that rather the people are they're going to be more panic and more in trouble.
Okay, so we'll come back to that issues of the presence of illegal arms in the hands of civilians. Before that, we'll go to Dr. Robert Harkip. He is the assistant professor in JNU and editor of Asian Ethnicity. Dr. Robert, so where does this start from? Because just now we have discussed, this unless and until these two warring groups come and meet each other or resolve their differences, the peace is not going to happen. However much the state or the union government claim that the normalcy is returning. So where is the beginning? Where is the seed of this unrest?
The problem in Northeast as a whole and Manipur in particular starts with the demand for enjoyment of greater political rights and greater advantage for development. This was the term exactly used by the Manipur Territorial Congress Committee on 8 November 1968 when they submitted a memorandum to the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and to the President of All India Congress Committee demanding for the grant of statehood for Manipur. At that time, Manipur was a union territory with a legislature. And at that juncture, the only other state apart from Assam was Nagaland. It was granted statehood in 1963. And looking into the people at the peripheral areas, whom we call today as the tribals in Manipur, they say that the people in those hill areas who are close to Nagaland are naturally tempted to go to Nagaland where they can enjoy greater political rights and greater advantages of development. And they claim that the political deprivation of statehood as a result in separatist and vociferous tendency all around, which was never known in Manipur before, has already appeared. So the question of economic viability as a criteria to grant statehood does not hold no water after the grant of statehood to Nagaland. So these are the kind of arguments that has been made about 55 years ago by the Manipur State Congress Committee, and they were aware about the aspiration for greater political rights and advantages of development by the tribals as well as by the people in Fal Valley. So this demand was put forward, and gradually Manipur was granted statehood on 21st January 1972, along with Meghalaya and if I'm not mistaken, with with the other states like Tripura. Yes, it was Tripura. So they were granted statehood, and from that on, Manipur exercises the state power, and as a result, the tribals were governed by a certain act called the Manipur Hill Areas District Council Act in 1971. And under that act, there were many, provisions. Yet politically, they have no rights. They have no legislative and other judicial power. Only few administrative powers that were granted under the, this act. And the district councils in the hill areas of Manipur were functioning under this with little or no power. And within one term of this ADC, right from 1978, the hill areas demanded the implementation of six schedule, like in Tripura. For instance, in Tripura, in 1982, the ADC started functioning, and within 3 years, the Tripura State Assembly recommended the inclusion of Tripura hill areas in the sixth schedule, and within 3 years, it was implemented. However, in the case of Manipur, the elections to the ADCs were boycotted for 20 years, from the early 90s till the 2008. And if you look into how powerless these ADCs are, you can find that for the last 2 years, there has been no elections to these ADCs. Who is responsible for it? There's no constitutional mechanism. There's no responsibility, on the elections to these councils. They were mainly dependent upon the chief minister of Manipur. So this is the condition of the tribals in Manipur, and they have to literally beg for the chief minister for certain funds for urban and as well as rural kind of development under this sixth schedule. So let me look back into the history of Manipur in terms of demands for greater political and other constitutional rights in this state. After the grant of statehood to Manipur in 1972, in the 1990s, in the early 90s, there were demand for inclusion of Manipuri in the eighth schedule of the constitutions. And within few years of this demand was granted. And now we can see Manipuri language in the eighth schedule of India. And later on, in the last few years, there is a demand for implementation of Inner Line permit, which earlier Nagaland, Arunachal, and Mizoram only enjoyed, wherein this colonial law requires every outsider, non-Manipuris, to take permission to enter into Manipur. So, of course, just to make a comparison with another state called Meghalaya, Meghalaya, the Khasi Student Union demanded this ILP for the last almost 2 decades, and they were not granted at all. There was no positive response from the central government. But however, in the case of Manipur, within 5 years, this demand was granted due to the peak of COVID. So look into these demands. When the state was granted statehood, since the state was granted statehood in 1972, the Manipuri society got two demands. That is the inclusion of Manipur language into the 8th schedule and the grant of ILP to Manipur. However, on the other hand, the demand of the hill tribes for the inclusion of ADCs in the 6th schedule has been denied for the last 45 years. So this is the kind of situation that we are, situated, and because of this kind of lack of development, disparity in development and other provisions, insurgency was started among the Kuki groups from the late 1980s, and from the early 80s, the NSCIM, which is primarily in the southern group with mass support from the Manipuri Nagas, has been entrenched in Manipur. So we see all this kind of so-called fissaporous tendencies all around in Manipur, which the Congress, Manipur Territorial Congress, mentioned it 55 years ago. So who is responsible for it? It's all about the deprivation as well as the demand for greater political rights and greater political advantage for development by the people of both the hills and valleys. And to certain extent, in the last 50 years, most of the funds, developmental funds, which comes from Delhi, concentrated in the Imphal Valley. Look into the number of universities located in Imphal, or look into the how many universities are located in Imphal. For the whole state of Manipur, most of them are located in Imphal. The colleges, the medical institutes. So all these institutions and others are mostly functioning in Imphal, and that is why many well-to-do elites and others went to Imphal to settle them, and particularly the Kuki communities who are settled in Imphal were totally wiped out from the Imphal Valley right now. Of course, there is also another kind of exodus from Churchandpur and More from the Manipuri groups as a part of this kind of conflict. So it's all about the demand for enjoyment of greater privileges, greater economic and other advantages that has been demanded for the last so many years. And this has particularly the demand of the hill areas has not been tackled for so many decades. That's what I would like to put politically.
So this
For
disparity in the distribution of funds and the prioritization of development, that could be the base of the issues right now, isn't it, sir?
Yes, of course. Yeah, and that has resulted in the demand for statehood. For instance, the integration of the Naga areas into Nagaland, as indicated in that memorandum, they would like to integrate into Nagaland to enjoy more political and other kind of developmental funding. Likewise, the Cookies also started demanding their own state, which they are in majority in Manipur.
Okay. So now we move to, I'll come back to you, Dr. Robert. Then we move to Kim Goy Wapai. She's a PhD student in diplomacy and disarmament at JNU itself. And she's a member of Young Tribal Women's Network. Kim, what I would like to hear from you is, from what Sushantji and Dr. Robert has said, the situation is really depressing and very worrying. So you have been working among the women of Manipur. So tell us about your work. We'll start with explaining what you have been doing since this unrest started in Manipur.
Yeah. So basically, when the violence started, and everyone in Imphal was just running to the nearest security camp, which later turned into relief camps. But at that time, they were just security camps. They were just the places where the CRPF or other security forces were staying. They just ran into there for their protection. So during that time, and those who had enough money to buy plane tickets were managing to fly out of Imphal, but the rest were just stuck there. And then there was a stress on like the food rations and just basic amenities and necessities. And we are talking about young, old, pregnant women, people who have life-threatening diseases and all. So at that point of time, me and a bunch of other tribal women who are here in Delhi and in other states outside of Manipur, we really wanted to help. We were hearing horrendous stories from our relatives who were there, stuck there in the city. However, the civil society groups were defunct. Members of civil society groups themselves were running to save their lives. So at the same time, other people of other communities could not take such visible action to help them because they do not want to be targeted, because the mob was too violent and too strong. So that was when we found that some of our friends were helping people, but in a very discreet and very incognito way. And us from outside, we started helping them by supplying them with whatever we can, be it their funds, and that was how our network got formed. out of sheer desperation to help those on the ground because there was no help coming from anywhere. So that is how Young Tribal Work got formed. And however, as the violence continues, our work also is continuing and it's not coming to any end. Because after this, when they finally got evacuated out of the security camps to the hill districts or to the other districts, even there they are being housed in churches, they're housed in school auditoriums, school buildings, or community halls. So they're running out of infrastructure, and right now it is very difficult to buy infrastructure within the state. So that's where we come in again. We're helping supply things from outside of the state. And when I say things, I mean like basic things like your mattresses. We're not even supplying proper mattresses. We're supplying just thick what do you call these roll of these thermocol not thermocol like that, but they're plastic rolls just to sleep on, just mats. We're supplying basic things like rice, onions. For women, we are their essential sanitary napkins, just basic bandages, baby food, because the rations are running low, and as every day you hear about a new village being burned, a new village being attacked, those villages are all coming to the nearest one of these relief centers, and so the demand and the what do you say? They become more and more limited. So that is our primary objective that we are looking at, to a point where even the district hospitals, even the mission hospitals in the areas are running out of even medicines. So that is the situation in the districts. I know we're about to run out soon. So other than that, then we are also dealing with those who have been displaced and have come to Delhi. So we want to work more, but since me and most of us are here in Delhi, we're trying to assist the displaced students in continuing their education. We have school children from as young as 4 years old to 18 years old who are displaced. Parents are so desperate that even if physically and financially they cannot leave the state, they are sending these minors with their relatives to leave the state just so that these children have a chance at normalcy, have a chance to continue their education somewhere. When villages burn down, we forget to mention that even the schools in the villages are burned down. These and when we talk about Imphal, I mean, even if peace is restored, I don't think these students can ever go back, because they don't have houses anymore. And I don't think a parent will ever trust the safety of their child in such a city where they were chased out from their homes. And then we are also dealing with college-going students. So that's your bachelor's and onwards. As we all have heard the horrific incident that has happened in Manipur University, the female students, how they were profiled within their own hostels. So even today, classes are resuming in Manipur. Exams are trying to be resumed. But for many students, that is just more stabs in their wounds. For them, they cannot imagine ever going back to the city where a mob came and identified them and tried to kill them, where they barely managed to save their lives. So we are in talks with concerned authorities, trying to make sure that they have a chance to continue their education in whatever way. We're trying to come up with systems. Because this is an extraordinary situation. So we're trying to we're in negotiation, we're in discussion with the concerned authorities in that regard to find a solution. And we have even college-going students who, the situation is so bad. They've lost their houses. Their parents are not sure they have a livelihood anymore. So those students have given up on chance of even continue their education and are here in the metro cities seeking jobs, because they're like, I'm not going to finish my degree at this rate, and education is too much of a luxury when financial status is not guaranteed. So we have students like that, and for many of these students, they might just be the first generation or the second generation in their family to get to college, and for them to give up on their dreams due to violence that they had no role to play in. it's really heart-wrenching.
Okay, the situation the situation as described by Kim and Dr. Robert are extremely depressing and distressing. So, Sushanta ji, you talked about the illegal arms among the civilians. So, on one side, the governments are speaking about normalcy being brought back slowly but steadily. But from what Dr. Robert has explained, the division is very deep. The concerns are very genuine, and they are very old. Some of the issues have been discussed for maybe 40, 50 years. On the top of it, the civilians are being armed by illegal arms, and they are taking the law into their hands. So, what is the solution that you are visualizing? Is it possible in near future, or do we go by the version of the governments?
See, the arms from civilian, that has to be recovered first. That's a bit of priority. But yes, although the government said that we are recovering, then we also came the number of around 1,500, but we're not getting updates on the recovery of arms anymore. Because if the arms are retained and they have explained, I asked them when I visited both the affected areas, they said, how are the civilians are using this arm, because civilians do not have any knowledge or expertise of using the arms. They are not trained. They said ex-servicemen are imparting training. So people are getting training on how to use arms, and probably, and it looked like this process was on even before the conflict initiated started. Sexual violence had taken place. Although I may not have the exact evidence of where exactly this training was on, or but then I could come across bunkers guarded by the volunteers, and then there are also visuals coming out even in local televisions from protecting the cover, and the villagers have demonstrated, displayed the arms with them. Some of them with the double barrel guns, not the sophisticated ones. Okay, maybe that's armed with the sophisticated. So the arms has to be confiscated, has to be recovered at any cost. Any cost in the sense that then the government must initiate steps through the civil society organizations to make civilians hand over the arms. Because when arms are with the people, they are going to not, the process of dialogue is not going to take place. And I explained in the beginning why they are still holding the arms, because they are not being able to trust in the security forces of providing them the security. Now, yes, apparently for the affected communities, it looked like it is a complete split, permanent split. People are not going to will not be able to go back, return to their villages anytime. So it in every conflict situation, it disappears. And we have seen in Assam, people languishing in makeshift relief camps for more than a decade, 10 years. In 1996, 98, when the groups of Adivasis and the Bodos, they had their conflict, and there was attack, counter attack, and people were languishing in camps, majority of them Adivasis, for more than 10 years. But now they have returned. They have been rehabilitated. Once they are rehabilitated, the situation is normal now. So apparently it may appear to the groups, to the organizations, and to the affected people, and this is quite natural also, to feel insecure when the incident is continuing. So the recovery of arms and the stop to the conduct, that's a bit of priority to for restoration of peace. At the same time, government has to have built up a massive rehabilitation program, because they don't, when they return to this, they have nothing. They have to rebuild their life from steps, everything has been lost. I mean, I have seen the houses being raised, only the rubbles are there. No, so the houses have to be built. They have to be provided basic the amenities to restart their life, and strong security measures so that they don't feel the threatened that their lives will be at stake again. Like it has highlighted the students in Manipur University from the hills. They must feel secure to come back to the hostels. Yes, I met some students who expressed this situation. They said, we cannot think of returning to the university because of our profile. I'm not really confident to return back. So that restoration of confidence has to be from the government. It is the responsibility on us lies entirely with the government in instilling confidence among the people. They cannot just leave this task to the communities.